Matthew 21 through 6. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace and said to them, "You also should go into my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock and did the same. And about 5 o'clock he went out and found others standing around. And he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" And they said, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came and the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner and said, "These last worked only 1 hour. And have you made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat?" But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I'm generous? So the last will be first, and the first will be last." This is a great story that talks about how we can break open our faith for the sake of a justice of what I call distributive justice, where things are spread out evenly. Now, the story says that there were people who couldn't find work. And so this guy who owned the vineyard, who had money to pay people, went out and found workers, and then found more workers, and then found more workers, and he just kept bringing people in, possibly because he wanted to get his vineyard taken care of, but it sounds like he really wanted to give people some work. He wanted them to be able to pay for themselves. I don't know if any of you here have ever been in the position where you couldn't afford yourself, but it's a nasty position to be in. And so you work and you scrape and you do what you can, and if all you can get is a minimum wage job or maybe a waitress job where you hope the tips are halfway decent, and maybe the schedule keeps changing because they don't want to give you affordable health care, and so they push down your hours until suddenly you're working 10 hours a week and you don't know if you should try to get another job because maybe you'll get, it's very frustrating. These people here were day laborers. They didn't have a job that they went to regularly. They found work as they could. And they went around looking and looking and looking, and when the last, at 5 o'clock at night, were found by the vineyard owner, and he said, "Why have you been idle?" They said, "Well, we haven't been idle. We've been looking. No one's hired us. Well, come on and work for me. I'll give you what is right." And what the guy decided was right was the usual day's wage. So the guys that showed up at 6 o'clock in the morning and worked for 12 hours, because that was the day that they had was a 12-hour day, got ticked off. And said, "No, wait a minute, how can you pay them the same as what you paid me? How could you be so generous? How can you do that to yourself?" That's not very good management. Jesus talked a lot about management and money in the scriptures. And the stuff he talked about is strange. because it's counterintuitive to what we think is a good idea and pretty smart. And Jesus was also all about wisdom. And you scratch your head at some of these parables and go, seriously, that's the wise thing to do. Wise for what and wise for who? The landowner was concerned, I think, for the general economy more than his own. In Deuteronomy 24:14 and 15, it says, "You shall not withhold the wages of poor and needy laborers, whether other Israelites or aliens who reside in your land in one of your towns. You shall pay them their wages daily before sunset, because they are poor and their livelihood depends on them. Otherwise they might cry to the Lord against you, and you would incur guilt." God cares about people being able to afford themselves. I'm not sure God really cares about money. I never have gotten that sense. But God cares that people eat and have water to drink and clothes to wear and shelter and love and things that they need, and fun and happiness and jubilee. That's all in our scriptures. So if we look at it according to just the economy, we can talk about that for a very long time. But let's also look at it as a metaphor for our religious life. There might be people who have been in this church since they were born. There might be people who have been in this church just a little bit of time. And I'm sorry to say that in many, many churches there are hierarchies of who gets to make what decision when. And we go, well, that person can't possibly be on council yet. That's not fair. That person can't possibly be in this position. That's not fair. And I think in this we can see a metaphor for generosity. Some people may have been looking for themselves their whole lives. And at the very last moment, they find their spirit and they go, oh, look at that. I had no idea. There's a God. And this Jesus. I get it. I get how that would intersect with my own life. And we go, well, wait a minute, I was following this God for a long, long time. You can't just have the same heavenly benefits that I got. I think the benefit package should be smaller for those just recently saved, God. The amount of angels they get to interact with should be fewer. And the shininess of the halo, too. Can maybe we give them a plainer halo? Because, let's be for real, God. I've been working in your vineyard for a very long time. And God says, what's it to you if I give them the same bejeweled halo that you have? What's it to you if they get to hear the same heavenly chorus? You get to hear it too. Doesn't that break open our faith a little bit and challenge us? Because we live in a society where the distribution of benefits, let's call them, is based on what you earn in somebody's eyes. And here Jesus is saying, no, it's based on the generosity of the person giving the benefits. I think this is beautiful. We had a dessert and discussion at first. This week we're going to have it here at Grace. And we're watching videos that will, I hope, provoke discussion. And this last week, Lynn led it as I was leading Dorothy Thuse's funeral. And it was a video about Peter Rollins talking about how to deepen our faith. And one of the things that Peter talks about is that in contemporary Christianity, we emphasize belief. What do you believe? Do you believe the right thing? Do you believe it wrong? Do you believe what the preacher says? Do you believe what your ancestors believe? What do you believe? And then we look for your behavior. How does your behavior line up with what you believe? Are you doing it right? And then after we see that belief is in place and your behavior is halfway decent, then we'll let you belong. All right, you've passed the test. The gauntlet of Christianity, where we smack you down with all your sins. You can belong now. And what Peter Rollins says is, this is the opposite of what a family does. And we're supposed to be a family of God. So in a family, a baby is born, and the first thing that happens with that baby is they belong to your family. Right? What do they believe? Thank you very much. I don't believe anything except that my diaper's wet. They don't even know what a diaper is. I need help. I'm hungry. I'm crying. The baby belongs. And through the course of growing this baby up, we work on behavior, don't we? I remember I was working in a daycare center. Okay, I got to keep track of the time because we have communion. But I was working in a daycare center with kids from 5 months old to 2.5 years old. Now that's quite a spread for any of you who work with kids. And we had at least 10 kids in this daycare center. And so the toys were arranged for the whole age, and sometimes the babies would get the 2.5-year-olds' toys. And so I figured out a system to help get the inappropriate toy, the toy that might have corners and edges and hurt the baby, and give them a baby toy without making the baby go, ah! Right? I'm glad I don't have a microphone on. And so what I would do is I would take a baby toy, and I would look at them, and I'd go, thank you, and I would exchange the inappropriate toy with the appropriate toy. Thank you, and they'd go, oh, and they would really like it. Everything was peachy keen. Really, I can do a baby for a long time.
We'll borrow Eleanor.
Yeah, I can imitate, absolutely. So one day, the oldest kid in the group, who's 2.5 years old, her name is Sarah, suddenly I see her walking around with toys going, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, oh my goodness. You just can't keep exchanging. And I'm like, but I do it all the time. She picked up on that and she thought, what a fun little game. Thank you. And the babies would be like, okay, I have time. I don't care. And she was like, wow, that really works. I can't remember why I brought that up. Oh, yeah. And peace be with you. Behavior, we try to work on people's behavior. So the good news was Sarah didn't just take kids' toys and make them cry. We had one baby who got off the bottle immediately at 1 year old. Her mom and dad decided that was the thing to do. And so she never took another baby's bottle to drink it. She would just push them over. And she would take the bottle, push him over, and like throw the bottle away. This was harder behavior to deal with. But did it mean that she belonged any less? Did it mean that I cared for her any less? No, not at all. So here was this sweet young thing pushing babies down, making them cry, and taking their bottle and throwing them to the other side of the room. Somehow having to deal with this behavior. And then here was little Sarah, who was just mimicking me. And I had to change that behavior too, because she didn't understand my motivation for having done it. But neither of them made them belong any less in my heart. First they belong, then we work on behavior. And then sometimes we get to look at belief. And we start to look at how, they share our beliefs, the children, initially, most of the time. And then there comes a point where no matter what you believe, they believe the opposite, probably. And then things kind of shape up, and we believe some similar things and disagree, and we're able to come to terms with our differences. Shouldn't the church be more like that? I think this church here is a lot like that. You walk in this door, and we just want you to feel like you belong. And then there's the sense of behavior. And we can talk about beliefs, but it's not nearly as important as do you feel seen and heard and loved. So let's keep doing that. But let's challenge ourselves to break open our faith even more. To see if we have some assumptions when people walk in the door that maybe we could drop off. Because belonging in God's kingdom is paramount. Behavior can be really helpful. And belief, we can belong with having different beliefs. And so with God's generosity, I invite you to crack open your faith a little bit more when it comes to people. Not just walking into this building, but feeling them belonging in your heart, no matter where you are.